Atlanta has seen its fair share of scandals, but nothing could have prepared fans for the bombshell that dropped when whispers began circling about Kirk and Rasheeda Frost being fired by Mona Scott herself. Yes, you heard that right, one of reality TV's most talked about couples, a duo whose roller coaster marriage has fueled headlines, memes, and late-night debates for years, allegedly cut loose by the very woman who built the love and hip-hop empire. The news didn't just rattle their fan base, it set the entire internet ablaze. Hashtags exploded across Twitter and Instagram. Hashtag Frost fired. Hashtag Mona died it. Hashtag justice for Rasheeda. And fans couldn't believe their eyes. What could have possibly driven Mona Scott to turn her back on the Frosts after more than a decade of messy loyalty? Some claimed it was money, others whispered about a secret betrayal, while a few insisted Mona had simply grown tired of Kirk's endless scandals overshadowing the franchise. Mona ain't no fool, one fan tweeted. She knows when the drama stops bringing ratings and starts bringing lawsuits. But was it really about business? Or was there something darker, more personal, lurking behind the decision? Sources close to the situation say there were heated arguments behind closed doors, screaming matches, slammed doors, and ultimatums thrown like daggers in a war that had been brewing long before cameras captured it. Rumors suggest Rasheeda herself may have been caught in a tense confrontation with Mona, tears running down her face as she begged for one last chance to stay on the show that made her a household name. Meanwhile, Kirk was spotted leaving a downtown Atlanta office building late at night, his face twisted with anger, muttering into his phone about contracts, respect, and not going down without a fight. Insiders say Mona had already made her decision, but what happened in those final meetings left cast members, crew, and fans reeling. Was this really the end of the Frost era, or just the beginning of a scandal that could reshape love and hip-hop forever? The truth, as shocking as it is, would soon come spilling out, and nobody was ready for the storm it unleashed. The cameras had barely stopped rolling on the last reunion when whispers began to circulate that something seismic was about to shake the foundation of the Frost empire. Kirk and Rasheeda had always been staples of love and hip-hop Atlanta. Their marriage, a chaotic blend of betrayals, reconciliations, side-eye moments, and shock confessions that kept fans glued to the screen. But behind the bright lights and perfectly staged drama, tensions with the producers, particularly Mona Scott, had been simmering for months. It started small, a quiet disagreement over storyline angles, a pushback on how much of their personal life was fair game for national television. But the Frosts weren't just another couple in the cast. They were brand builders, faces of the franchise, and they felt entitled to a certain level of respect. Mona, however, had other ideas. Rasheeda, Mona reportedly said during a private meeting, her voice steady but icy, "The show has carried you for years. Don't forget who made you a household name." Rasheeda's eyes had welled up, but she refused to let the tears fall. Kirk, ever the defiant partner, leaned back in his chair with a smirk that only enraged Mona further. "Respect goes both ways," he snapped. "We gave this show a decade of our life. You've milked our pain, our marriage, our mistakes for ratings. And now you want to paint us like we're disposable." The tension in that office was so thick it could choke a man. Staff members outside claimed they heard doors slam, furniture scrape against the floor, and Rasheeda's muffled voice crying out, "This isn't fair, Mona, this isn't right." Fans who had long adored Rasheeda as the soft-spoken queen of grace and patience would have been shocked to see the other side of her. The woman who had been humiliated time and again by Kirk's scandals finally lost her composure. "You think I don't know my worth? You think I don't know what I bring to this show? You can't erase me like I'm nothing," she screamed, her hands slamming against the table. Mona, unshaken, leaned forward and whispered words that would haunt Rasheeda long after that meeting. "Every empire falls. Even yours." The rumors spread like wildfire across Atlanta. Other cast members began whispering about closed-door confrontations, canceled shoots, and phone calls that ended with raised voices and threats. Young Jock allegedly told friends at a lounge that he had never seen Kirk so furious. "Man was pacing like a caged lion," Jock said, shaking his head. He was talking about lawsuits, about going public, about exposing Mona for everything. But the more Kirk threatened, the more Mona seemed emboldened. She was, after all, the mastermind who had weathered countless scandals. She knew the Frosts weren't irreplaceable, no matter how iconic they seemed. Behind the scenes, things took an even darker turn. Kirk was spotted in hushed conversations with lawyers, Rasheeda confiding in close friends about feeling betrayed, not just by Mona, but by the very industry she had sacrificed so much for. "I gave them my marriage," she told a friend, her voice trembling. I let the world watch me break down. I let them turn me into a storyline. And now they want to throw me away like trash. The friend later recounted those words to a gossip blogger. And within hours, headlines screamed, Rasheeda breaks down over alleged firing. Fans were enraged, demanding answers, flooding Mona's Instagram with angry comments, accusing her of destroying the very couple who had carried the show through its darkest seasons. Meanwhile, Mona played it cool. On her social media, she posted cryptic messages that only fueled speculation. Sometimes you have to make the hardest decisions for the greater good, she wrote one night, paired with a photo of a child. Fans dissected every word, convinced the Queen piece represented Rasheeda and Mona was hinting that it had to be sacrificed. This is cold, one fan tweeted. Mona really playing games with people's lives. Inside the Frost household, the tension reached boiling point. Kirk stormed through the kitchen one evening, waving a crumpled piece of paper. They think they can end us like this. Over an email. No meeting, no negotiation, just a damn email. Rasheeda, sitting at the counter with her head in her hands, whispered, I told you, Kirk, I told you this day would come. We gave them too much of us. We should have pulled back years ago. But Kirk wasn't ready to accept defeat. His ego, battered though it was, refused to bow. No, they don't get to write the ending to our story. We do. And if Mona thinks she can fire me, she better be ready for the war I'm about to bring. This defiance, though, wasn't just about pride. For Kirk, it was about survival. Their businesses had suffered from his reputation. Their endorsements had dried up every time a new scandal hit the blogs. And love and hip-hop had been their lifeline, their platform to stay relevant and profitable. Without the show, what did they have left? Rasheeda, who had once built boutiques and music on the back of her television fame, now faced declining sales and fans questioning whether she could stand on her own. The pressure mounted, their marriage once again hanging by a thread. Not because of infidelity this time, but because of the terrifying possibility of irrelevance. The fan base remained divided. Some were furious at Mona, accusing her of being a manipulative puppet master who discarded people once their pain no longer sold. Others argued that the Frosts had outstayed their welcome, that their storyline had grown stale, repetitive, and unconvincing. It's the same thing every season, one critic wrote online. Kirk cheats, Rasheeda cries, they make up, rinse, repeat. Maybe Mona was right to cut the cord, but the backlash was undeniable. The Frosts trending daily, their names on everyone's lips. One late night, Rasheeda reportedly broke down completely. Alone in her bathroom, she stared at her reflection, tears smudging her makeup, her voice trembling as she whispered to herself, who am I without this show? What if they forget me? What if I disappear? Her phone buzzed with messages, support from fans, offers from bloggers, threats from haters, but none of it filled the void. Kirk, hearing her muffled sobs, stood outside the door, torn between guilt and anger. He knocked softly. Sheeda, he said, his voice low, we'll figure this out. We always do. But even he sounded unconvinced. By the time dawn broke, the Frosts were united again, not in love, but in survival. They vowed to fight Mona Scott, to expose the truth behind their firing, and to remind the world that they weren't just reality stars, they were survivors. What they didn't know was that Mona wasn't done with them yet. She had her own arsenal of secrets. And if Kirk and Rasheeda thought they were going to walk away clean, they were sorely mistaken. The shocking truth was only beginning to unravel, and the fallout would be unlike anything Love and Hip Hop had ever seen. Picks up in the aftermath of that stormy night when Rasheeda and Kirk vowed to fight back. Atlanta was buzzing, the blogs alive with speculation, the streets echoing with whispers that the Frosts had been humiliated, discarded like yesterday's gossip. But what most fans didn't know was that Mona Scott had already begun her quiet campaign to silence the couple before they could rally public sympathy. She wasn't just a producer. She was a strategist, a chess master who had built an empire on scandal. And she wasn't about to let Kirk and Rasheeda tear it down with one reckless outburst. Word spread that Mona had scheduled an emergency meeting with the network executives, painting the Frosts as liabilities. She reportedly told them, their drama has stopped being entertainment and started being a legal risk. If we let them stay, the lawsuits won't stop, the sponsors won't stop pulling out, and the brand will collapse. Executives, already wary of Kirk's endless controversies, leaned in. They wanted fresh faces, fresh stories. Mona promised she could deliver, but in private, she knew removing the Frosts wouldn't be simple. They weren't just characters, they were fixtures, woven into the DNA of the franchise. She needed to dismantle them carefully, piece by piece. Meanwhile, Rasheeda was unraveling. She tried to put on a brave face for her children. brushing off questions about why the cameras hadn't been around lately, why fans were speculating about their absence. But late at night, when the house grew quiet, she collapsed into bed, her mind racing. All those years, she whispered to Kirk, her voice hoarse. All those humiliations I endured for ratings, all the times I let them drag me through the mud, and now she wants to erase me, like I never mattered. Kirk, pacing the room, clenched his fists. We're not going out like that, Sheeta, not without exposing her first. People think they know Mona, but they don't. They don't know the half of it. It was then Kirk began contacting bloggers, sliding into DMIs, feeding them tidbits of behind-the-scenes secrets. Rumors soon erupted that Mona had manipulated entire storylines, scripting moments fans thought were real, even paying off side chicks to appear at filming locations to accidentally expose Kirk. One anonymous source claimed, Mona had once told Kirk directly, "The bigger your scandal, the bigger your check." Fans were stunned. They had always suspected parts of the show were exaggerated, but hearing that Mona may have orchestrated Kirk's infidelities for television clout sent shockwaves across social media. So wait, one viral tweet read, "Kirk ruined his marriage for ratings, and Mona pulled the strings." The Frosts, now painted as pawns in Mona's grand game, began regaining public sympathy. Rasheeda, in particular, became the face of resilience once more. Bloggers described her as a woman betrayed not only by her husband but by the industry itself. First Kirk broke her heart, one article said, and now Mona has tried to break her spirit. But Rasheeda stands strong. Fans flooded her boutique with online orders, posting messages like, "We got you, Queen," and "Forget Mona, you don't need her." For a brief moment, it looked like the Frosts might turn the tide. But Mona Scott had anticipated this. She began leaking her own ammunition. Private texts between Kirk and other women mysteriously appeared on gossip pages, alongside unflattering footage of Rasheeda allegedly cursing out production staff. The narrative shifted again. See, Mona's allies whispered to the press. "They're not victims. They're toxic. They made everyone's job miserable. We had no choice but to let them go." Cast members were divided. Yandi Smith allegedly sided with Mona, telling people, "Business is business. If they can't handle the heat, they shouldn't have signed up for the kitchen." Meanwhile, Carly Red reportedly defended Rasheeda, insisting Mona had crossed the line. "She's tearing down a family for ratings," Carly said. "That's not right." The drama spilled into real life. At an Atlanta lounge, Rasheeda and Carly were spotted in a heated conversation. Paparazzi snapping photos as Carly clutched Rasheeda's hand, whispering urgently. Across town, Kirk was seen storming into a lawyer's office, his jaw set, his face grim. Fans speculated a lawsuit was imminent. Hashtags like #TeamFrost and #MonaExposed trended daily. The energy was chaotic, messy, everything fans craved on, exactly what Mona didn't want outside of her control. She thrived on creating the storm, not being consumed by it. Behind closed doors, Mona allegedly called Rasheeda one final time, hoping to negotiate silence. "You walk away quietly," she said coldly, "and I'll make sure the doors of this industry stay open for you. But if you fight me, I promise you'll regret it." Rasheeda, her voice shaking but resolute, replied, "You don't own me, Mona. You don't own my story." She hung up the phone, and for the first time in years, she felt free but terrified, because she knew Mona never made empty threats. As days turned into weeks, fans noticed something eerie. Episodes of Love and Hip Hop began airing with the Frosts edited out almost entirely. Their storylines abruptly cut, their presence diminished like ghosts of the past. It was as though Mona was trying to erase them in real time, rewriting history before the audience's eyes. But if she thought Kirk and Rasheeda would fade quietly, she was wrong. They were preparing their own explosive counterattack, one that would drag every hidden secret into the light. And it all came to a head one night at a cast event where tensions finally boiled over into chaos that cameras couldn't contain. The night of the cast event began like any other glitzy Love and Hip Hop affair, with velvet ropes, paparazzi flashes, and Atlanta's nightlife elite dressed to kill. But under the shimmering lights and fake smiles, a storm was brewing that no one could stop. Kirk and Rasheeda arrived hand in hand, their posture stiff, their faces guarded. They knew every camera lens was trained on them, waiting to capture the fallout. Whispers trailed them through the crowd. Some fans clapped, shouting, "We love you, Sheeta," while others muttered about their alleged firing. Everyone knew tonight could explode. Mona Scott was there too, her presence icy and deliberate. Dressed in a sleek black gown, she exuded power, moving from group to group, with that infamous producer's smirk, whispering in ears, setting the tone like a queen surveying her court. She spotted Kirk and Rasheeda across the room, and their eyes locked. The tension was so thick it silenced the chatter around them. One cast member later described it as watching two lions circle each other before the kill. Things turned ugly quickly. Young Jock, always the jokester, tried to lighten the mood, cracking, "Man, if Mona and the Frost's gonna fight, somebody better grab popcorn." But Rasheeda wasn't laughing. She stormed up to Mona, her heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor. "Why you trying to erase us?" she demanded, her voice sharp, trembling with fury. The room fell into hush as Mona, cool as ice, sipped her drink and replied, "Erase you? Honey, you erased yourselves years ago. All I did was finally stop pretending." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Kirk lunged forward, his finger pointing inches from Mona's face. "You been exploiting us from day one. You fed my mistakes to the world. You encouraged the drama. And now you want to act like we're the problem." Mona didn't flinch. She leaned in closer, her words cutting like glass. "No, Kirk, you are the problem. Always have been. And the show survived before you. It'll survive after you." The altercation spiraled. Cast members, like Carly Red and Spice, rushed in, trying to pull Rasheeda back, while Yandi grabbed Mona's arm, whispering, "Don't let them bait you." But Rasheeda wasn't backing down. Tears streaked her face as she shouted, "I gave you everything. My dignity, my marriage, my soul. And you spit on it like it meant nothing." Fans recording on their phones captured every word, and within minutes, clips hit social media, sparking instant viral chaos. Rasheeda versus Mona trended worldwide. The video viewed millions of times before the night was over. But that wasn't the worst of it. As security tried to calm the chaos, Jasmine Washington suddenly appeared, uninvited but impossible to ignore. She strutted into the venue like a ghost from the Frost's past, her presence sucking the oxygen out of the room. "Oh, so this what it's about?" she shouted across the crowd. "You mad at Mona, but you need to be mad at him." She pointed directly at Kirk, her voice cracking. "All this time, all this drama, it wasn't Mona. It was you." The crowd erupted, some booing, others cheering, phones shooting up to catch every second. Rasheeda froze, her face pale, her chest rising and falling in sharp breaths. Kirk barked back, "You don't get to come in here and point fingers. You were part of the circus too." Jasmine sneered, stepping closer. "Yeah, but I didn't build an empire on lies. You and Mona used me, used my pain, for ratings. And you think you can blame her now? Nah, Kirk. The world needs to know the truth. You're no victim." The room spun into pandemonium. Security shoved cameras aside, trying to break up the screaming match, but the damage was already done. Footage of Jasmine confronting Kirk and Rasheeda leaked within hours, and by morning, blogs were plastered with headlines. Jasmine crashes Frost Mona showdown. Kirk exposed in live meltdown. Rasheeda in tears again. Fans were divided all over again. Some said Jasmine was brave for speaking her truth. Others accused Mona of orchestrating the whole stunt, planting Jasmine to humiliate the Frosts one last time. Back at home, Rasheeda collapsed on her couch, her body shaking from exhaustion. "I can't take this anymore. Kirk," she whispered, clutching a pillow to her chest. "Every time I think it can't get worse, it does. And it's always you at the center of it." Kirk, pacing like a man possessed, growled, "Sheeda, listen to me. This is exactly what Mona wants, to break us apart, to make us implode. We can't give her that satisfaction. We gotta flip this." Rasheeda looked at him with hollow eyes. "Flip it how, Kirk? We don't even have the show anymore. We're already erased." But Kirk wasn't ready to surrender. He had a plan, reckless and desperate, but a plan nonetheless. "If Mona wants war, then let's give her war," he said. "We're gonna tell everything, every dirty secret she's tried to bury, every lie she's spun. We'll go to the blogs. We'll go live. We'll make sure the world sees the real Mona Scott." Rasheeda hesitated, her voice trembling. "And what if it backfires? What if she destroys us completely?" Kirk stared out the window, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "Then at least we go down swinging." What neither of them knew was that Mona was already preparing her next move. She had files, recordings, contracts, and enough dirt to bury the Frosts 6 feet under, and she wasn't afraid to use them. The real war hadn't even started yet. The fallout from that chaotic cast event sent shockwaves far beyond Atlanta. Blogs, YouTubers, and gossip outlets dissected every frame of footage, pausing on Rasheeda's tear-streaked face, replaying Kirk's furious rant, and looping Jasmine's damning accusation like it was a courtroom exhibit. Fans debated endlessly in comment sections, was Mona the villain pulling strings, or had the Frosts simply run their course? One thing was clear, the drama was bigger than the show now. This wasn't just reality TV. It was reality itself, messy, unfiltered, and unraveling in real time. At Mona's office the next morning, the mood was tense but calculated. Surrounded by her inner circle, she scrolled through the viral clips with a smile that chilled the room. "You see this?" she said, tapping the screen. "They think they're winning because they're trending, but I own the narrative. Always have, always will." One of her producers nervously asked if bringing Jasmine into the event had been wise. Mona shot her a sharp look. Wise? It was genius. The Frosts wanted to paint themselves as victims, and Jasmine reminded the world exactly why they were toxic in the first place. Meanwhile, Rasheeda couldn't leave her house without being hounded by paparazzi. At her boutique, cameras crowded the doors, fans screaming her name, reporters shouting questions. "Did Mona set you up? Are you suing the network? Is your marriage really over this time?" She forced a smile for the cameras, but behind closed doors, she broke down again. "I can't live like this," she told Kirk, her voice hoarse from crying. "I wanted fame, not this circus. I wanted to build something, not destroy myself." Kirk, restless and defiant, slammed his fist on the table. "Then let's end the circus. Let's burn it all down." That night, Kirk went live on Instagram, his face hard, his voice vibrating with fury. "Y'all want the truth?" he barked. "Here it is. Mona Scott been exploiting us for years. Half the scandals you saw on TV, manufactured. She paid women to pop up at our events. She told producers to stir the pot. And she edited footage to make me look worse than I was. She ain't no queen of reality TV. She's a devil in disguise." The live drew hundreds of thousands of viewers, fans flooding the comments with fire emojis, shocked faces, and endless speculation. Some believed him, outraged at the idea Mona had engineered drama for ratings. Others accused him of deflecting blame for his own choices. Mona wasted no time striking back. Within hours, exclusive documents leaked to major blogs, contracts signed by Kirk detailing his agreement to participate in storylines involving infidelity. Screenshots of text messages surfaced. ALLEGEDLY, showing Kirk begging producers to go easy on his image after one particularly damning season. And then came the bombshell. A leaked audio recording of Kirk himself laughing with crew members, saying, "As long as the check clears, I'll be the bad guy. Let them eat it up." The internet exploded. Fans who had defended him turned on a dime, dragging him mercilessly. "So all that pain you put Rasheeda through was for a check." One tweet read, "You're worse than Mona." Rasheeda, blindsided, confronted Kirk at home. "You told me you were a victim. You told me Mona twisted everything." She cried, her voice cracking. Kirk raised his hands in defense, his face pale. "Sheeda, listen, it wasn't like that. Yeah, I played into it sometimes, but I had no choice. If I didn't, we'd have been cut years ago. I did it for us." Rasheeda's eyes blazed with betrayal. "You did it for you. You let them humiliate me, season after season, while you laughed about the paycheck. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" Her words sliced through the room like knives, leaving Kirk silent, guilt etched across his face. Fans rallied behind Rasheeda again, painting her as the ultimate victim caught between a manipulative producer and a selfish husband. Celebrities even chimed in. Candy Burrus tweeted her support, saying, "Rasheeda deserves better. That woman carried herself with grace through it all." But the fractures in the Frost marriage were deeper than ever. Rasheeda retreated to her mother's house for a few days, needing space, while Kirk plotted his next move in solitude. Mona, however, wasn't done tightening the noose. She leaked one final piece of damning evidence, a clip that had never aired, filmed years ago, showing Rasheeda backstage in tears, begging Mona to stop airing her private pain. "Please," Rasheeda whispered in the footage, "I can't take any more humiliation. I'm breaking." Mona's voice could be heard off camera.com and cold. "The audience loves you most when you're broken. That's when you're real." Fans were horrified. Even those who once defended Mona began to turn on her, accusing her of cruelty, exploitation, and emotional abuse. The battle lines were redrawn. Team Mona versus Team Rasheeda lit up the internet, dividing households and friendships. Talk shows debated the ethics of reality TV, with pundits asking whether love and hip-hop had gone too far. Mona gave a rare interview, coolly stating, "Everyone signs contracts. Everyone knows what they're getting into. I never forced anyone to do anything." But her words rang hollow against the leaked footage of Rasheeda's breakdown. And then came the twist nobody saw coming. A network insider leaked that Mona hadn't just fired the Frost, she had been pressured to do so by executives after sponsors threatened to pull out. Apparently, Major brands were tired of the Frost circus overshadowing the rest of the cast. It was dollars and cents. The insider revealed. Mona didn't want to cut them, but her hands were tied. The Frosts weren't just drama anymore, they were a liability. This revelation flipped the script yet again. Fans now questioned whether Mona had become the scapegoat, forced to carry out the network's dirty work. Rasheeda, hearing the news, broke down once more. So all this time, she said to her friend on the phone, it wasn't even Mona's choice. I burned myself out, fighting the wrong enemy. But deep down, she knew Mona's cold words and manipulations weren't imagined. Even if Mona had been pressured, she had played her role with brutal precision. As the truth twisted and turned, the Frosts found themselves standing at a crossroads. Broken, betrayed, and humiliated, yet still defiant. Fans waited breathlessly, wondering what their next move would be. Would they sue? Would they reconcile with Mona? Or would they finally walk away from the circus for good? One thing was certain, the story was far from over, and the next act would decide everything. Part 5 opened with a silence that felt louder than any shouting match. For the first time in years, the Frost household wasn't buzzing with producers, cameras, and schedules. The house was still, the phones quiet, but the weight of the world pressed down heavier than ever. Rasheeda sat by the window, staring out at the Atlanta skyline, her face hollow from sleepless nights. Her mother Shirlene had dropped by with food, trying to offer comfort, but even her sharp-tongued advice couldn't pierce Rasheeda's fog. Baby, I told you a long time ago, Shirlene muttered, setting down a pot of collard greens. That woman ain't never had your back. Mona ain't no friend. And Kirk. She trailed off, her eyes narrowing at the man pacing the living room. Kirk only got his own back. Kirk, exhausted but restless, snapped at the comment. That's not fair, Shirlene. Everything I did for this family. Rasheeda spun around, her voice raw. You did it for you, Kirk. You let them use me. You let them drag me through hell while you played along for a check. The room erupted in shouting, Shirlene siding with her daughter, Kirk barking back, veins bulging in his neck. The fight spilled into personal wounds, long buried money lost, businesses crumbling, years wasted in front of cameras. By the end of it, Rasheeda collapsed in tears, whispering, I don't even know who I am anymore. Outside of their home, the world was unraveling faster. Mona had gone into defense mode, hiring crisis managers, pulling strings with media outlets, even releasing carefully crafted statements about respecting the Frost legacy. But fans weren't buying it. Leaked footage of Rasheeda begging Mona to stop exploiting her pain had changed everything. Talk shows debated the ethics of reality TV. Psychologists weighed in on the trauma caused by public humiliation. And hashtags like #ProtectRasheeda gained momentum. Even celebrities who once stayed quiet were speaking out. Cardi B posted a cryptic tweet, they'll use you till you break, then replace you like it's nothing. I seen it happen. The internet was convinced she was talking about Mona. For Mona, the problem wasn't just public perception, it was the network. Executives were furious about the bad press, and sponsors were panicking. Rumors spread that the network was considering replacing Mona herself, looking for younger, fresher producers to rebrand the franchise. For the first time in years, Mona wasn't untouchable. The empire is cracking, one insider whispered to a gossip blogger. If the Frosts pushed hard enough, they could actually bring Mona down. Kirk seized on this like a man possessed. He called meeting after meeting with lawyers, strategists, even rival producers. This is our chance, he told Rasheeda, his eyes blazing. If we expose everything, if we drag every dirty secret into the light, we can bury her. And then, we take control of our own story. Rasheeda, weary and broken, hesitated. At what cost, Kirk? How many more times do I have to cry on camera? How many more times do I have to be humiliated before you're satisfied? He grabbed her hands, desperate. This isn't humiliation. This is justice. This is payback for everything she put us through. Their plan began taking shape. They reached out to journalists, leaked documents, compiled years of behind-the-scenes, emails, and contracts. A tell-all special was rumored to be in the works, with another network circling like vultures ready to cash in on the chaos. But Mona wasn't sitting idly by. She launched her own counteroffensive, leaking never-before-seen clips of Kirk's worst moments, dropping subtle hints about affairs and betrayals that had never made it to air. She was reminding the world that the Frosts were far from innocent. The tension reached a boiling point when the Frosts agreed to sit down for an exclusive interview with a major morning show. The night before the taping, Rasheeda lay awake, staring at the ceiling. What if we're making a mistake? She whispered. Kirk, half asleep, mumbled. It's too late to turn back now. The next morning, under the blinding studio lights, Rasheeda poured her heart out to millions of viewers. She spoke about betrayal, exploitation, and the toll of living her life as a spectacle. Tears streamed down her face as she declared, "I let them break me for ratings, but I will not let them erase me. I'm still here. I'm still standing." The interview went viral instantly. Clips shared across every platform. Fans and celebrities alike praising Rasheeda's strength. But Kirk's segment of the interview told a different story. When pressed about his role in the scandals, he grew defensive, snapping at the host, insisting, "I did what I had to do to survive in this industry." Viewers weren't as forgiving. "Rasheeda deserves better," fans wrote. "Kirk ain't changed, and he never will." Back at Mona's office, she watched the interview with a sly grin. "They're burning themselves without my help," she murmured. But inside, she knew the Frost story had become bigger than her. The sympathy pouring in for Rasheeda threatened to topple the narrative she had carefully crafted for years. The network was breathing down her neck, demanding solutions, demanding control, and Mona, always the strategist, was already plotting her next shocking move. As for Rasheeda, she returned home from the interview to find a flood of flowers, gifts, and letters from fans. For the first time in months, she smiled. "Maybe I don't need Mona. Maybe I never did," she whispered to herself. But her relief was short-lived, because as she set the flowers down, her phone buzzed with a new message or private video clip sent from an unknown number. She pressed play, and her blood ran cold. It was Mona, sitting in her office, speaking directly into the camera. "Rasheeda," Mona said with chilling calm, "if you think this is over, you're wrong. I still have one card left to play, and when I drop it, your world will never be the same." The war wasn't over, it was just entering its deadliest round. The message played like a threat and a promise. Rasheeda stood in the kitchen with the phone inches from her face, breath caught in her throat as Mona's voice filled the room. Kirk walked in mid-sentence, caught the look in her eyes, and reached for the phone, but she jerked it away and hit replay like she needed to be sure she'd heard it right. Mona's tone was smooth as glass. "You want the truth? You keep asking for the truth. Fine, let's give the world the truth you've been terrified to say out loud." "What is it?" Kirk demanded. Rasheeda locked the screen and pressed the phone to her chest. "She says she's going to drop something that destroys me." She swallowed hard. "Not you, me." Kirk's jaw tightened. "It's a bluff. You don't bluff with a camera rolling," she said, voice thin. She recorded that like a statement. He reached for her hand and found it ice cold. "Then we get ahead of it. We go live right now." "Not yet," she said. "If this is what I think it is, going live will only make it worse." "What do you think it is?" Rasheeda stared out the window at a slice of evening sky bleeding into the city. "Years ago, when everything first blew up, when I said I forgave you on camera, there was a second take." Kirk frowned. "Everybody does second takes. Not like that. The first take, I told the truth. I said I was done. I said I couldn't bring a child into a house where I felt small. I said I would leave, with or without the show." She blinked away a film of tears. "Mona told me to take a breath, fix my makeup, think about the brand, think about legacy. We ran it again. I said the lines that kept us on air." Kirk stood very still, the implications spreading across his face like a shadow. "She wouldn't have kept that. Mona keeps everything." He started pacing, hands on his hips. "If she drops it, people will say you lied." "I did lie," Rasheeda said, soft and brutal. "For the show. For us. For the storyline you were busy feeding." Charlene's key hit the door and she walked in with a folded newspaper under her arm, reading glasses perched on her nose. "Y'all see page 3. They dragging Mona like community laundry." She eyed their faces, lowered the paper, and clicked her tongue. "What now?" "Mona sent a message," Rasheeda said. "Let her send a parade." Charlene snapped. "We not running." Kirk spoke without looking up. "If it's the old footage, it'll make Rasheeda look like she faked forgiveness." Charlene didn't blink. "Baby, you cried for real. That's all the truth folks need." She came closer, put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "If she drops it, we drop bigger. You tell the story in your own voice." Before they could answer, the phones vibrated in a chorus across the table. Alerts stacked. Breaking, exclusive, leaked. A push notification from 3 different blogs lit the screens at once. A never-before-seen clip of Rasheeda backstage, eyes red, voice flat, telling producers she was leaving the marriage and the show. A second clip, dated the same day, of a retake where she sat straighter, dabbed at her cheeks, and said she believed in her marriage and would fight for it. The internet roared. Fans were stunned, split down the middle. One side cried out that the first clip was the real Rasheeda, that she had been coached into staying for ratings. The other side accused her of playing with their emotions, of performing heartbreak for fame. So which is it? A trending post asked. Was the pain real or not? Underneath, thousands of comments wrestled with the same moral knot. When a camera turns pain into product, what happens to the person? Rasheeda scrolled until the words blurred. They think I tricked them. You didn't, Charlene said. You did what you had to do in a game you didn't invent. Kirk slammed his palm against the counter. Enough reacting, we hit back. Tonight, no lawyers, no PR handlers, just us. I don't want to defend the lie, Rasheeda said. I want to tell the whole story. The part where I stayed because I couldn't stand the idea of failing in front of millions. The part where I thought if I could survive the worst season of my life on camera, I could survive anything off camera. The part where I thought maybe you would wake up if the whole world saw me break. Kirk's eyes softened, guilt cutting through his chest. I'll own my part, then own it without excuses, Charlene said. Men always find a way to turn an apology into a lecture. Kirk nodded, chastened. No lectures. They set up in the living room with a ring light and a phone propped on a stack of coffee table books. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the quick rhythm of their hearts in their throats. When the red dot blinked and the comments began to roll, Rasheeda spoke first. What you saw today was real, she said, voice steady, eyes wet. Both clips were real. In the first one, I said I was leaving. I meant it. In the second one, I said I was staying. I meant that too. That's what happens when your life is on a clock and your decisions become content. You tell yourself you can manage the pain if it pays the bills. You tell yourself love can survive a public beating. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're not. Kirk leaned forward. I failed my wife. I failed my family. I also fed this machine because it rewarded the worst parts of me. I thought I was being smart, playing the villain for a check. I wasn't smart. I was selfish. Don't call yourself a villain, Rasheeda said, almost absent-mindedly. Villains know what they're doing. They took questions live. They answered the ones that hurt most. Did the show stage the cheating? No. Did production escalate and arrange scenes to make sure consequences landed on camera? Yes. Did Mona protect them? Sometimes. Did she choose the show over their humanity? Also, sometimes. Were they fired? Yes. Was it only Mona? No. The network wanted them gone. Did they regret staying after that first clip? Silence stretched. Rasheeda inhaled. I regret not protecting myself better. The live ran 2 hours. It cracked 2 million views in the first 30. Comments poured in from fans who had grown up with them, from people who had judged them, and from people who apologized for doing so. Others stayed cynical, convinced every tear was strategy. It didn't matter. The truth, ugly, contradictory, human, sat on the table between them like a shared plate of burned bread. They had served it, and now the world would eat or spit as it pleased. After they ended the live, the house felt strangely light. Rasheeda laid her head on the back of the couch and closed her eyes. You did good, Kirk said. We did honest, she answered. They didn't have long to rest. A new alert cut through the quiet. The network had issued a statement, acknowledging the clips, praising Rasheeda's courage while making vague noises about new directions. Then another alert, this time from a rival streamer. They wanted a meeting. Not about scandal, they promised. About rebuilding. About what it looks like to step away from the carnival and make a life in the daylight. A fair offer. An upfront season order. Complete creative control. Kirk looked at the email like it was a warm door in a winter alley. We take it, he said, voice low with awe. We take it and never look back. Rasheeda didn't answer. She stared at the screen, then at the city, then at the framed photo on the shelf of a younger version of herself in a bright dress on a bright stage. Conviction in her smile. Creative control, she said, more to herself than to him. I don't even remember what that feels like. Feels like this, Charlene said from the doorway, arms crossed, watching them both. You sit down with your pen and your God and you tell your own story. No producer, no ex, no stranger on the internet gets a vote. The next morning they met the streamers team in a quiet room that smelled of coffee and new carpet. No velvet ropes, no handheld cameras peeking like nosy neighbors through the blinds. A woman with tired eyes and a crisp blazer introduced herself as showrunner. We want a slow story, she said, not an apology tour. A life. If you want to walk away from cameras, we'll make this one last project and we'll make it clean. Why us? Rasheeda asked. Because everyone thinks they know you, the showrunner said. They don't. Kirk studied the contract as lawyers explained clauses. No forced scenes. No manufactured infidelity. Notes would be collaborative, not commands. If a moment cut too close to the bone, they could pull it. If an episode dragged, they could end it early. Payments would not be tied to scandals or cliffhangers, but to delivery and quality. Rasheeda put her finger on one line and tapped. No confessionals, she said. No interviews, where I sit in a chair and grade my own pain. Done, the showrunner said. They signed. The pen scratched like a promise. News of the deal leaked before they reached the car. Fans were elated, then suspicious, then elated again. Let them build, one comment read. We want to see love without a trapdoor. Others warned they were running the same game with a softer glove. It didn't matter. The streamer's announcement trended in the top 3 for 24 hours. Mona's name trended to. In her office, Mona watched the live replay for the 4th time, face impassive. A junior producer hovered in the doorway, asking if she wanted to respond on camera. She waved him off. When the door closed, she allowed herself a single exhale, more weight than sound. She picked up her phone and called an old friend in distribution. Don't bury them, she said, surprising herself with the gentleness in her voice. It won't work. Let them go where they're going. You okay? The friend asked. I built a machine, Mona said. It ate what I fed it. You going to fix it? I'm going to feed it better. She hung up and opened a folder. Inside were production notes from 7 seasons ago, scribbles about scene order, song cues, a little coffee stain at the bottom of a page where Rasheeda had cried into her hands and Mona had kept the cameras rolling. She touched the stain with her thumb and closed the folder. The first day of filming for the new docuseries was not a shoot in the usual sense. No crew swarmed the house. A single cinematographer met them at dawn and walked with them through a farmer's market that smelled of peaches and rain. They bought bread and argued quietly about pickles. They ran into a fan who burst into tears, then laughed at herself, then hugged Rasheeda like a sister returning from a hard war. Kirk carried the bags, more quiet than usual. When the cinematographer asked for a moment on a bench, Rasheeda sat and tied her shoe and, for once, did not look around for the best angle. How does this feel? The cinematographer asked. Like being uninteresting, she said, smiling for the first time in a way that reached her eyes. And I like it. They visited the boutique. Staff cheered. Phones rose, but the cameras stayed back. No pull-ins on tears. No zooms on a cracked voice. The showrunner kept her word. When a customer tried to bait a scene, girl, what do you think about Mona now? Rasheeda laughed and pointed to a dress. I think this looks like Sunday. At night, she and Kirk sat on the porch with 2 glasses of tea that went untouched as crickets wrote a score under the hedges. I'm scared, she said. Me too, he said. Not of failing, of being average. He leaned back and looked at the slice of sky between the roofs. Average sounds like a miracle. They didn't fix everything. They still fought. Old triggers still sparked. On day 7, a rumor hit the blogs that an unseen ex would appear. It wasn't true, but it spiked Kirk's blood like a match to dry leaves. He snapped. She snapped back. And for a moment it was season 4 again. 2 people swinging in a glass room. The cinematographer lowered the camera without being asked. No one spoke until the heat left the room. Later, at the kitchen sink, Kirk washed a pan that didn't need washing. I want to be the man who deserves you, he said. Be the man who deserves himself, she said. That's the only man I can live with. They built new rituals the old show would have cut for time. A weekly dinner with no phones. A rule that neither of them would answer a stranger's question about their marriage when the other wasn't present. A promise that any decision made on a stage could be unmade at home. The network they'd left behind scrambled to stabilize. Mona brought in a therapist for cast wellness, invited a rotating panel of critics to production meetings, and changed the pace of editing so that moments had room to breathe. Ratings dipped, then rose, then found a new normal. Jasmine, who had detonated the event that melted the old season into headlines, called Rasheeda one afternoon. The number came up unknown, but the voice was familiar. I said what I said that night, Jasmine began, and I won't take it back. But I don't want to be a weapon anymore. Neither do I, Rasheeda said. They spoke for 20 minutes. Not allies, not enemies, 2 women who had lived under a hot lamp long enough to know what burns. When they hung up, Rasheeda stood for a long time with the phone in her hand, feeling a quiet that did not feel like emptiness. The docuseries cut together into a shape that resisted sensational pull. In the edit bay, the showrunner watched an episode with almost nothing in it a consultant would call must-see. A drive across town, a stop for gas, a joke about a squeaky fan. A moment where Rasheeda tried on a hat and snorted at herself in the mirror. The showrunner turned to the editor. It's good, she said. It breathes. It's slow, the editor said. Slow is good. They delivered the first 3 episodes. The streamer pushed them without fireworks. Early reviews called it modest, then disarming. A handful called it boring, which made Rasheeda laugh and made Kirk oddly proud. On premiere night, they didn't throw a party. They ordered takeout and watched on the couch under a blanket that smelled like detergent. When the closing shot faded and the credits rolled without any cliffhanger, they looked at each other and let out a breath neither had realized they were holding. "I didn't lie," Rasheeda said. "You didn't." "Feels like the first time in a long while." They went to bed before the metrics came in. The numbers the next morning weren't record-breaking. They were steady. The audience didn't surge and crash. It arrived and stayed. The comments were quieter too, more paragraphs than pitchforks. People wrote about marriage like a thing they had touched, not a game show they had judged from a couch. By midweek, Mona sent a text. It arrived on both their phones at once. 5 short lines that sounded like someone who had walked a long distance to speak and did not want to waste any of the air. "I saw the show. It's good. You look like yourselves. I'm glad. Keep going." Rasheeda typed and erased 3 times before she put the phone down. "I'm not sure what to say to that," she murmured. "You don't have to say anything," Kirk said. But that evening, under the same slice of sky, she answered, "Thank you. We will. You've seen the headlines. You've heard the whispers. And you've lived through every shocking twist of this saga right alongside us. From Mona Scott's boardroom maneuvers to Kirk's desperate battles and Rasheeda's raw, tearful confessions. This wasn't just another love and hip-hop storyline. It was a storm that spilled out of the screen and into real life. The Frosts were supposed to fade away quietly, erased with the stroke of a producer's pen. But instead they fought to tell their story in their own words. You watched them get dragged through betrayal, through manipulation, through humiliation, and somehow still rise to face the cameras again, not as caricatures, not as characters on a script, but as people daring to reclaim their truth. Now the question is, where do they go from here? Will Kirk and Rasheeda's new path, free from Mona's grip, finally give them the peace they've been denied for so long? Or will old wounds and new temptations drag them back into the chaos that made them famous in the first place? Will Mona herself stay standing as the queen of reality television? Or is this scandal the beginning of the end for her reign? And what about Jasmine, Charlene, and the rest of the cast whose lives are still caught in this hurricane? Are they done being pawns? Or will they rise as players in their own right? The answers aren't simple, and that's why we need you. Yes, you sitting right there, watching this unfold. Reality TV has always thrived on the voices of the fans, on your reactions, your outrage, your loyalty, and your love. Every hashtag, every comment, every share has the power to shape what happens next. You decide who stays relevant and who fades away. You decide whether Rasheeda's resilience becomes her redemption, whether Kirk is forgiven or forever branded as the villain, and whether Mona Scott's empire survives the storm she created. So here's what we're asking. Don't just sit back and watch. Become part of the conversation. If you believe Rasheeda deserves better, if you think Kirk can or cannot be redeemed, if you think Mona is a genius or a tyrant, drop your thoughts below in the comments. Let your voice be heard, because this isn't just their story anymore, it's yours too. Fans built the Frost Empire as much as producers did, and fans will decide what its legacy becomes. And if you've been hooked by every gasp, every tear, every late-night revelation in this saga, then you already know, this isn't the end. The only way to stay ahead of the drama, to know the truth before the rest of the world, is to join our community right here. Hit that like button to show your support, slam that subscribe so you never miss the next chapter, and turn on notifications because the next revelation could drop any second. Trust me, you don't want to be the last to know when the next bombshell explodes. We're talking leaked footage, surprise appearances, betrayals you never saw coming, reconciliations that might heal old wounds or tear them open all over again. The story of Kirk, Rasheeda, and Mona isn't finished, not by a long shot. It's evolving right now, and we'll be right here to bring you every twist, every confrontation, every raw and unfiltered truth they try to hide. This channel is where the real story lives, and if you've been with us from the beginning, you know we never hold back. So what do you think? Was Mona justified? Or did she cross every line of decency? Was Kirk protecting his family, or just himself? Was Rasheeda's endurance strength, or was it survival? Drop your answers below, and let's get this debate burning hotter than ever, because in this world, silence is complicity, and your voice is power. Hit like if you stand with Rasheeda. Subscribe if you want the unfiltered tea that nobody else dares to spill. Share this video with your friends so they know the shocking truth behind the Frost's firing. And let's keep this conversation alive until the truth can't be ignored. This isn't just a story, it's a movement. And together, we're going to make sure it's never erased. Now tell me in the comments, whose side are you on?